Come on, focus camera. We're doing a live feed. Oh man, my boy Alex. Let's bring him in. Oh yeah, bring in Alex in live feed. Watching each other, just the two of us. Started a stupid.
Yeah.
And now we're just us rocking out in the live feed. Cheers, dude.
Yeah, cheers.
Those things.
Good. I'm working on things for the announcement in
Oh shit.
in our business acquired photo editing.
Oh, we got our brother Matt. It's a freaking party. The guys is all just minus Alex. So, you know, midnight training. All right. Well, start talking about something the video from front there and YouTube page at the leisure. One of the points of the live feed tonight we talk about a mega event gear, slowdowns, being prepared for everything, cosplay costume aspect of a post-apocalyptic survival event. So when you do an event like this, a lot of different ways to address the loadout. And when Alex and I came up with storyline, I think we ended up to cater to a lot of different varieties of loadouts, styles of different timelines, people who grab, plug out bags, contacts with different style, all the way to people who are more mindless, more tribal, prolong and further. Is that some pretty bad?
Yeah, it's at my end. I don't know what that is. My apartment's completely quiet.
So, what's up, everybody? Everybody should really be, which I'll actually that being said, there's a big difference for some of the people that showed up. Yeah, so this way.
I'm gonna drop off because there's no noise that's being made, but I don't know.
Hey, can everybody hear me now? I think I kicked poor Alex off because I'm an asshole fucking business partner. Try this again. Well, let's try adding you one more time, Alex. Please forgive us. This is I guess some never-ending fucking work in progress. Oh, declined. Okay. Did you actually decline me, Alex, or no? Okay, whatever. All right, so let's start again. Survive a mega event set in a post-apocalyptic time period. From now, if anyone hasn't read the storyline, the quick synopsis is that years, decades, even of conventional war, basically have eradicated most usable resources. which then turned these conventional wars from political doctrine basically wars of resources. Then an asteroid hits, boom, kills out the remaining 90% of the world's population, and the rest are surviving with horrendous dust storms, killing people off and whatnot. So, and writing that a storyline and that little vague little glimmer there, it leaves a lot of room for people to wear different attire. From, as I was saying before, from people who just want to grab a bug-out bag and wear their civilian clothes and look like they came out of Division, all the way to those with bones and ornaments and more tribal styled, almost Mad Max, costuming. And everywhere in between, you got your Fallout people, you got your Stalker people, and whatnot. So I believe our storyline allows for a lot of a leeway in that. And we had a big mixed bag of people at the beta game, from people who just wore their civilian clothes that they probably rolled out of bed that morning and put on, all the way to people that had a little bit more, armored and ornate, styled stuff, and a couple, Mad Max, Fallout type people. So it worked. Rob Emoff actually did a pretty cool job, had a really awesome post-apocalyptic loadout, and was prepared for the event in the fact that he had shelter, he had a blanket to keep warm, and the blanket was basically an old movier's blanket, and he basically stuck this all in an old, almost like maybe like a 1950s like suitcase. So he, as a really smart individual, really thought out a very costume apocalyptic attire loadout, but also made it practical to serve his purposes for getting through the events, and that he actually had everything that he needed. Well, we move ahead to Desolation, and Desolation was not very, I'm going to word it cosplay-y as far as Wastelander looks and stuff go. And a lot of that just came down is that the Mother Nature really didn't allow for it. And there might have been some misclarifications on it, because our rules are evolving, as a bit as we need to kind of, fine tune things. And initially, the rules might have said that you couldn't wear, camouflage, clothing. Is now I believe that it's worded, and Alice can chime in to correct me. Is that you just can't wear matching camo, and just again because one of the points was that when we try to present a new, different style event to predominantly airsofters, even though that's not our main sect. What's up, Alex? That airsofters are very gear-centric. They're tactical gear-centric. They got pouches for their plate carriers and backpacks and map packs and everything in between from their head to their toes. And one of our things for pushing people to challenge themselves was to basically, again, one of our mantras is to do more with less. And that you really don't need all this gear, and a lot of times all this gear in a survival situation where you're trying to escape, killing dust storms from the asteroid deposited to dealing with raiders and not having a lot of ammo to fight it out. It's a very mobile setting. And a lot of times you just wouldn't have battle armor, whether it be license plate mail, all the way to plate carriers and ceramic plates up inside. Maybe if you're like a city guard or you're a more fixed, antagonist group in the area, you'd have that stuff. But the majority of our participants are supposed to be mobile and on the run, which really means that you wouldn't carry a lot of that stuff. But costuming, is still always encouraged, and we appreciate a lot of people's creativity in that. But when we found that we came to Desolation, Desolation was very a more, even like a current preppers, type attire and stuff. It's just basically whatever worked. And that was really important because a big aspect of our games is surviving the conditions that Mother Nature is going to put on us all, staff included, and making sure that you have shelter, shelter from the elements, whether it be a proper, size and placed and set up tarp, all the way to a tent if you wanted to carry that onto the field with you. Making sure you have a backpack that's big enough and comfortable enough to carry everything you need, but nothing more than you really need. You don't want to be an overpacker and bring extra stuff and heavy stuff that you don't need. But the biggest thing at Desolation was is being, was protection from the rain and the wet as well as warmth. And those are two big things. Now you can circumvent some of it, especially the warmth aspect and even wet, if you had a properly stoked fire, or maybe a well placed, tarp, cutting off the wind, allowing more radiant heat to come off. You could have dried clothes off, and use that for personal warmth. And but at the end of the day, not everyone's going to want to camp out in a sleeping bag next to a fire pit, right? So you got to make sure you have, a proper sleeping bag or sleeping attire, a sleeping system, as we call it in the backpacking world, as well as a proper clothing system, as well. So in the future, at future events, just be mindful that the role playing, cosplaying, getting loadouts and gear to kind of fit the theme and the storyline about 50 years in the future from now in a ravaged world, is absolutely awesome. But that will always have to be second to the necessity and needs of proper gear to actually survive the weekend, which is a part of the challenge of our events in itself. So there's ways to kind of have your cake and eat it too, but I will never fault somebody for rolling up in some freaking, Gore-Tex freaking gear or a poncho or bringing a tent or a nice big fat giant warm sleeping bag out there. Because most times you're really not even carrying your stuff, roughly about a mile. Most times than less. But make sure that as you're building loadouts and prepping for our events, that you have a shelter system that's going to make your life comfortable in the elements wherever we're doing it at that time of the year. Make sure you have a clothing system that will allow you to deal with anything from cold, wet conditions all the way to hot, humid conditions. And make sure that you have a sleeping system that will allow you to be warm at night, because you may not have a heat source other than your own body temperature. And a good sleeping bag is important. Now, speaking of sleeping bags, as a young lady found out, and I always try to echo, and if anyone is big into backpacking and camping or whatever, sleeping bags come with a rating, and very seldom are the ratings of a sleeping bag actually true. And even if they are true, that rating is what is usually termed a survival rating, where you're not going to freeze to death. But man, you are not going to get a good comfort sleep if you buy a 20-degree sleeping bag and it's 20 degrees out at all. You're going to be quite cold and probably chilly. You won't die, but you're not going to have a good sleep. So be mindful when you're out there and you're thinking about getting gear, or if you have gear already, you need to make readjustments. Make sure that you're getting a sleeping bag that is at least 20 degrees rated lower than the coldest temperature you think you're going to experience. And, for the time of the year that we did Desolation in the Poconos, looking at the temperatures, it was about low of 40. I brought a 20-degree sleeping bag, and I was still chilly. And so I had to basically resort to a secondary system, which allows you to be warmer at night and when you're sleeping. That is your clothing system. And your clothing system is important, again, not only when you're running around or walking around and getting into gunfights and role-playing and trading and scavenging, to protect you from the elements and to be warm in those conditions. Think about that the conditions change. It's not a normal airsoft game other than Milsim West or very few 24-hour games that I know of, where you are actually playing from mid-morning to maybe the evening. It really gets cold about 1, 2 in the morning, just like it gets really hot about 1, 2 in the afternoon. So layers are important. Non-cotton material is important. I know that kind of gets a little bit conflicting. It's easy to go out and buy a bunch of old cotton freaking jeans and flannel and rough them up, and you're looking the part for the events. But synthetics are important. Synthetics are basically plastic, and other than keeping away from a flame source and having them go up in flames. Synthetic material stuff will last a long time. I got smart wool socks that are, gosh, 20 years old, that's basically a wool and synthetic blend, but, going back to natural fibers and more older, easy to get surplus or thrift store clothing, wool's very, very, very great too. It's heavy, but it's warm, you can get some fire embers on it. It won't start on fire, won't burn. But, really think about a layering system. And you can always run a more costumey out layer, some beat up tactical pants and, maybe a cool shirt, post-apocalyptic Hawaiian shirt. But, underneath, no one's judgmental about making sure you're safe and comfortable, and, make sure you're getting yourself synthetic underwear, more specifically synthetic thermal underwear, wool blend, synthetic socks. Stay away from the cotton, from basically from your feet and your underlayers. You need to avoid cotton at all costs. Make sure when you're buying your gear and your clothing, your most outer layers, make sure they're big enough to fit your underlayers as well, and that way you can take layers on and off as the temperatures change from highs to lows throughout the day and night times as you're out there. Always bring an extra layer or two. It'll never hurt. So for desolation, I bought a mixed bag of surplus Gore-Tex. I was staffing, so I was doing a lot of walking around and being forced into the elements and couldn't hunker down in a tent or whatnot if I could, didn't have the time and luxury to do so. So I bought a mixed bag of some Gore-Tex. I had a cotton beat up T-shirt that I didn't even wash since the beta event. I'm really going for that post-apocalyptic, ambiance with my own clothing. I had a pair of ratty tactical pants, and underneath that, I had a lightweight set of synthetic thermals, and I had a mid or heavier weight set of synthetic thermals as well. And then I had a pair of smart wool, synthetic wool blend socks. And so throughout the day as needed, I could, take off a layer or two or add a layer or two on, and I still look like a disheveled freaking dude in my ratty, surplus, Gore-Tex. But it fit the theme. It wasn't extreme one way or another, but it was smart planning to where I had the right attire to be as comfortable as possible until those really cold nights and the wind, kicked in and hit us all, which I really regret not sleeping in the woods. And I'm pretty sure Alex and any other staff member who thought the pole barn was a convenience for us was horribly disappointed of what a chill factory that turned out to be. So when you get in the nighttime portion too, you got to remember, so a lot of times I actually, scummy as a sound, I pretty much wore all those layers, all 3 days that we were out there. I did change my underwear once, which are synthetic. And a lot of these things, you don't have to always go to REI or order them online. You can go check out a surplus store. Polypro is very cheap and easy to obtain. As well as, almost any mass merchandise store, especially this time of year, especially in Western New York, you go to Walmart, Target C9. I don't know what the Walmart brand is, but they have synthetic long underwear now. Socks, you may have to go to like an Academy or a Dick's Sporting Goods or a Cabela or something like that to get a good pair of socks. But socks are so worth their money. I mean, gosh, give me a good pair of socks and shitty boots any day of the week. But that being said, you always want to make sure if you do something like that you have at least a backup pair of underwear. Unless you want to be really ratty and skivvy below the waistline, and 2 more pairs of socks. Now, 2 pairs of socks. So that way you have 1 pair you can rotate as wear socks. And those are socks that you're going to wear throughout your active portions of the event. If it's raining really bad, your feet get wet, you'll have a pair you can swap out to. And when you're running synthetic or wool blend synthetic socks, they dry really, really fast. And that goes with your thermal underwear, any of your layers. Synthetic stuff dries out really, really fast. Just don't get it too close to the fire because then they can melt and or start on fire. But synthetic is the way to go. And I believe my pants were a high synthetic blend, and they were pretty much dry. I mean, actually, they were dry come first thing Sunday morning because they were pretty wet from the rain on Saturday. But you want at least 2 pairs of socks, one that you're going to wear, one that's another wearable pair of socks that you can rotate out to. But then you always want to have a sleeping pair of socks that you just dedicate for sleeping. Nothing sucks more when you have cold feet, especially cold, wet, clammy feet. When you climb in a sleeping bag, they'll just never get warm on their own. So throwing a pair of sleeping socks on, it does absolute wonders. And if your sleeping bag isn't rated well enough, or if it's rated well enough and all of a sudden Mother Nature kicks us in the shins and drops the temperatures a lot lower, don't forget all those layers that kept you warm during the day, while not ideal to sleep in, will keep you warmer than not in a situation where it's a choice between getting a night's sleep and not getting a night's sleep. And I'm not going to say good, but also effective. And my dogs agree, as always. So again, in moving forward and trying to kind of set an idea and a theme, we're not going to turn anybody away from trying to have a certain look, as long as it's still post-apocalyptic and they have legitimate reason why. You want to show up with freaking bones on your mask and whatnot, and everybody looks like they came out of division. Just tell them that you've been, some backwoods inbred hillbilly for the past, 40 generations of your family, and this is all you've known, and just happens to fit with the apocalyptic times that we now find upon us. So we encourage the creativity. We actually think it's pretty cool, dude. I'm a historian, dude. I would play freaking historical freaking cosplay events and LARPing across the board, from 1812 reenactments to Mad Max Wastelander weekend type stuff if I had the time, money, and effort to do so. So our events have a room for a lot of that individual style. But please, please, please make that always second to having the proper gear and equipment you need to make it through our events. There's always going to come down to eating. You're allowed to bring a gallon Ziploc bag of food, full of food, I should say. Case by case situations, depending upon the AO, will allow us, if we can, let you have campfires, barbecue pits, individual camping stoves, alcohol stoves, on and off, butane, style gas stoves. So that will always be in little, intel updates or addendums going into our events, so you know how to plan your meals accordingly. There also is always, our in-game economy and food sources can be acquired. But again, always be mindful of that, what type of food you're going to have and how to prepare it. And again, if anyone, Chris Hoyt is watching. Chris, if you can, Chris Hoyt's amped one of our sponsors at Desolation, and a great group of guys just to have out there. Send me the name of that MRE type backpacking type food that you had. Dude, I'm just personally interested about that for my regular backpacking activities. But you had a food that basically was kind of a cross between an MRE and like a freeze-dried meal. So basically, I believe it already had a heating element in it. You just freaking put some water up inside of it, and it heated a meal like an MRE without all the additional weight of the moisture content of an MRE itself. Those seem to be like a pretty dope dish. And I'm definitely interested in that. But again, when you think about planning for an Omega event, you got to think about wow. Thank you, Chris. I appreciate that. So you think about the food you're going to bring. Think about how you're going to prepare it. And so a lot of times, again, a lot of things in our events, when you look at the bushcraft and backpacking community to help you, are usually high calorie, add boiling water type meals are usually my forte of because you just dump water in it, right? How can you really mess it up? As well as they're easy and convenient, like the Knorr's rice packets. A little pro tip: you can actually add boiling water right into that packet, mix it up, and especially if you have something to kind of insulate it. If you use some clothing, some warm clothing to make like a koozie on it, you can actually cook a Nor's rice side packet right in the package. The noodles take a little bit longer, and you might not want to dabble with that, but instant mashed potatoes. Aha! This is from a northern boy here from New York who keeps forgetting that there is a uh, gas station, restaurant-y, foodie chain called Wawa, and that was a very funny inside joke. Now that you help explain that to me, Chris, and I do appreciate that. You still get a pee slap for that misdiscretion there, but whatever. Yeah, no, yeah. So the O meals, yeah, dude, good one, dude. You got me on that. But think about the type of food you're going to bring and how you can prepare it. Salt. All right, sorry. Ethan Thompson and his wife just made the best homemade salsa. I'm sorry, totally sidetracked. Like, I actually still got a half a jar left. I've been holding off and trying to like devour that. I really we're bringing an event out your way, Ethan. Just so I'm gonna make you bring salsa as your entry fee. Um, but so when you're out there and you're bringing your food and whatever, think about it. Yeah, salsa, actually, you bring a jar of salsa if you want. I go, but all the additional water and weight is everything you have to carry to start with. So it's a big balance of comfort, necessities, and the weight and the consequences thereof of carrying that stuff. But it's not a horrible. We're never going to baton death march anybody as far as that goes. But that being said, you really don't need to sleep the whole weekend. You really probably don't even need to eat. But it's about making us comfortable and helping us to enjoy the experiences. More than just what the game itself provides. Our buddy Will was a trader. On his own. Came up with some of his own resources to trade for it, and he went out and bought some Jiffy Pop. And man, I mean, that was just a brilliant idea, because who doesn't want to, while sitting around a campfire late at night, cold and wet, just blast out some Jiffy Pop popcorn. So again, be mindful, of your caloric intake. Think about high calorie, low density type of foods, dry foods. Not necessarily boil and bag foods. I mean, those are easy to go. You get yourself some mountain houses and whatnot, but they're usually overpackaged. And even so, if you even get like a mountain house, or if you a little backpacking tip for what a lot of us do is boil in the bag, cooking, where we'll take a lot of things. Like, I'll take my oatmeal packets normally, and I'll just put them in a Glad freezer, must be a freezer, Ziploc baggie. Because I can actually dump boiling water right into that, especially with a little koozie device, or just wrapping a fleece jacket around it. It will actually just heat up and reconstitute right in that bag. So a lot of times, even if we tend to go on elongated backpacking trips, we'll buy the mountain house stuff, but the package is so big and bulky, we'll actually ditch the package and put them up inside quart size of Glad freezer bags, and just run it that way. And that way you can actually fit more into a gallon Ziploc baggie, than if you just try to jam a couple big mountain house up inside there. But we had a couple guys kind of get a little hungry, but most of we figured out for about 40 hours, 3 days, like a Ziploc gallon, Ziploc gallon bag will be about the perfect size for food requirement. But the food you bring, just remember you gotta cook it if it has to be cooked, and think about how you're going to do that. Most likely than not, I don't see too many issues with basically on-off canister camping stoves. Something to think about. I think Amazon sells a BRS like 3000 for like $10 or something. Get yourself a little 550 millimeter stainless cup, and you could basically boil enough water that you need from a cup of coffee all the way to what most boil and bag recipes would go. Very, very cheap setup, and it's very efficient. And if there's ever an issue, you can turn it on, turn it off, and lightweight and compatible, and which is a good way to cook up your food. Okay, so I'm at my point where I just want to finish up a couple of things real quick, and then we're actually going to talk about an announcement that Alex and I have. I actually wish Alex was on for this, because I feel like I'm such a freaking prima donna Facebook Live video hog for us. So water. All right. So at our events, again, depending on the event, depending on the time of the year, you will need to either be allowed to bring water, but at a minimum, you're going to need a water carrying device. Whether that's a couple empty, plastic bottles. Nalgene's are big, bulky, and heavy. Empty smart water bottles are a lot lighter. But you'll definitely want to have something to be able to acquire water. Water may not always be found at our events in the size of a water bottle. They may be big 55-gallon jugs of water or a water buffalo. So you're going to want to make sure that you have something that can hold water for not just only your own personal usage, for maybe even storage for later uses such as cooking, washing, whatnot. Also be mindful, depending on the AOs that we go to, there may be natural water sources available. So please don't drink directly from the water. You don't want to be that person who has to go home because you're literally shitting your life out through diarrhea. So if again, depending on where you go, it might behoove people to thinking about and invest and learn how to properly use a quality water filter, or at least some chlorine dioxide pills, which are a lot better than iodine, at least tasting. Pretty readily available. And, the only issues with the chlorine dioxide pills, which I actually prefer going backpack because it's way lighter than a filter, is that it takes, I think, about sometimes up to 4 hours for it to kill all the bad stuff. So it's not something you'd be able to use right away. But somebody who brought a 3-liter empty plastic vessel or a water bag or whatnot, and there's a natural water source by it, you can always kind of scoop up your own water, drop some chlorine dioxide tabs in there, or get a filter and filter your own water. And generate your own water source. It might even be something worth thinking about trading, to other people who might be depending upon in-game provided water sources. But we'll always make sure there's water available one way or another. Again, we're not out here to kill anybody. We're here to get you to challenge yourselves. So Max, had a camp that was near a water source at Desolation. The other camp had one not next to it like Max's was, but it wasn't too far away. It was like the same creek. But just be mindful, out there, think about where you're going and where it's at. If it's like someplace in the Poconos where it's a higher elevation and a lot of natural, springs feeding into it, regular filters and purifiers and purifying tablets work fine. If it's someplace, that has a lot more farmers field and cattle grazing, the runoff may actually have more pesticides and stuff in it, and most filters won't get that out. Sawyer makes one for about $70, which has a pre-filter that takes out heavy metals and whatnot. And I love my dogs. Something like that, I would probably just say, rely on the game provided resources, and we'll let everybody know ahead of time, the conditions of water sources that we move forth. But yeah, we're actually very nice and clean and great water sources for that. Again, you talked about sleeping bags, clothing system with that. And let's just real quick, shelters. Shelters again. You got to get out of the elements. You got to get out of the rain. Sometimes a tent's nice because they're easy to use. Just be careful. Cheap tents may not be waterproofed. So make sure that you consider that a cheaper tent, if you went that route, you're probably going to have to waterproof it. Actually, most times than not, it won't hurt you to waterproof the seams, because that's usually where the leak spots are going to be. Now, again, you got to bring the weight in. Sometimes getting a bigger tent, maybe amongst a couple friends going to an event, you can distribute the weight and break it down, make it easier to bring in and carry. Individual tents, you can probably get on the way about maybe 3-4 pounds. It's not horribly heavy, but if you want to go small, light, and fast, tarps work. And just be mindful of making sure you have a big enough tarp to create more surface area, especially when you're a big, large dude like Eric. A bigger tarp is usually easier to set up in different configurations to create more airflow in nicer weather, to be more bulletproof in more hardened wind and rain conditions that we kind of suffered at Desolation. And sometimes even a tent with a small little tarp is beneficial, because now you can have a sleeping area and you can create a more open space communal area to get yourself out of the elements if they happen to be inclement, as far as that goes. Normally, when I go backpacking, if it's just like me or a couple guys, I'll tend to either, jump in someone's tent and I'll just bring my tarp. Usually if it's like me and the wife, we bring a tent and we bring a tarp. One of us each has a shelter in case for some crazy reason we got separated. We both have proper shelters, but combined together, we have a nice livable space to sleep in, as well as we have a nice communal space to sit out and enjoy nature and eat and whatnot. But if you're going to do a tarp, make sure you know what you're getting into. Not every AO that we'll go to will have trees, and that goes for the hammock guys as well. We can't guarantee that, and you have to set up in the community according to our rules. So the communities are going to probably be in areas where we can fit, 10 to 30 people, per time. So you just might not have tree choice to set up tarps and or hammocks. So just be mindful of that. Again, tarps are easy to set up. A lot of videos out there. We'll do a couple soon. And basically you can use 2 sticks to create tree-like, poles. Some people use trekking poles. Some people, you can basically buy sections of tent poles and create your own poling structure. So basically, and the top things off again is you got to pack stuff in, and a backpack that's big enough and comfortable enough and hopefully light enough that it's not overburdening you in unnecessary weight to bring all the aforementioned items, that you're going to need, plus, any, airsoft derivative type stuff, spare batteries, iPro, anti-fog, health and beauty aids, whatever, toilet paper, trowel or something like that to dig a cat hole, which if I'm speaking 4 languages, we'll cover that, at a later point in time. But that being said, it's just, there's a big aspect of it. Sometimes you're going to be outdoors in the woods, and sometimes at our events you may be in something that's more of a mount facility or an industrial facility, so that you may have hardened structures that you can go into and whatnot. But I'm still telling you, man, a tent in a frickin' icebox frickin' garage would have been so much better than just trying to sleep in a sleeping bag and that thing that we stayed in desolation. So going forward, folks, again, be mindful and think about the gear. Not only that you need to play the event, but that it actually gets you through the event and to help you survive and to help you go from roughing it into smoothing it. So we'll probably talk more about gear at another point in time. But I just say, talking to Alex, we just wanted to make sure to let people know there's no right or wrong way of doing it, as long as you're prepared to last the duration and any of the conditions that Mother Nature tends to throw at us, for the time of the year and the location that we have our events at. All right, cool. So moving on, let me take a quick little drink here. Oh, that beer is quite hoppy, so the burps will be coming in a moment. All right, so announcement time. We're dropping off, and I'm already 8 minutes past. I'm not too bad tonight, Alex. Actually, not too far off our mark. So our announcement. So I'm pretty darn excited about this, and I know Alex is as well, and I think a lot of our friends in the Midwest are going to be pretty excited. Now, basically, this may not necessarily be our first event of 2019, but it's our first event that we have locked down, and it's worth noting and announcing now is that basically Alex and I at Survive Omega Productions would like to announce our event Revenant, and that's going to be April 26th, 27th, and 28th, and that's going to be at D-Day Action Park in Wyandotte, Oklahoma. So if anyone's been to my much loved American Milsim friends event, Broken Home, we're going to be using the same AO for our events. So basically, it's going to be a Friday evening through Saturday, Sunday afternoon, event where all participants are going to basically, have to stick it out and stay on the AO. So, yes, mad excited about that, and I hope to get Max and some of these guys with enough time in, get them out there, because I'd love to have, a lot of the guys that have been to our first 2 events or either or, out to this event. It's a bit of a drive, if you make a drive time, but I'm pretty sure lots of people are going to be carpooling. I'm pretty sure I'm going to have a trailer full of stuff to get out there. So I guarantee you it's going to be worth it. Now, so all my friends in the Midwest area, my Missouri boys, and gals, my Oklahomians, my Arkansas people, Kansas people, North Texas people. You know what? We figured that D-Day was the most central location to all of you, so that should be not horrible drive time, and we're excited to do it there. And we're definitely excited to make it easier for all our friends in the Midwest to come out and experience, what we're putting out. So that's going to be April 26th to the 28th, Wyandotte, Oklahoma, D-Day Action Park. And where it's pretty dope. I mean, I know that place pretty good now. Unlike, Skirmish, which was a little bit of a quick learning experience for us to kind of get things fanned out. I already have a huge envisionment of how things are going to go for Revenant at D-Day Action Park. So it's gonna be pretty dope. So cool things. So because Alex and I for some reason love to continue to lose money with this company. That we have some tiered pricing to take advantage of. I'm sorry, not for us to take advantage. It's actually for you folks that might have some extra pocket cash that want to get in it sooner than later. So basically, this Friday tickets will go on sale, and any tickets that are bought from now until December 1st are only $80. And from December 1st until December 31st, the tickets are $100. And then after the 1st of the year, January 1st, up into, I think, the 20th of April, the tickets will be $120. So, from $80 to $120, that's not that's basically a third, of a discount. As far as that goes. And I mean, our event, you're going to get all your ammo. You're going to get, water, food, stuff like that. If if you needed it, that's actually in-game provided resources. We'll be having a massive amount of our Enola Gay cloud makers out there. Be really pushing our new rule set, the only thing that will save you from the asteroid cloud dust, which are symbolized by these yellow Enola Gay cloud makers, are going to be a respirator or a gas mask, and so it's going to be pretty cool. So I want to keep on saying it's going to be pretty cool and it's pretty dope because I'm pretty excited about that. So we feel our ticket prices are very reasonable for what we're going to offer. And for those that want to get them sooner than later, the tickets are going to be pretty dirt cheap as far as that's going to go. So we're looking forward to that. All my friends in the area, all the guys in my command cadre, regular teams that play with me and know me, and get with me if you folks are going and you might want other things to do to kind of bump up your experience and more importantly bump up the experience of other people. Get with me and Alex, and we'll definitely figure out something for you to do to make things pretty cool. So I did say we're working on 2 other events. We're trying to do an event the first of the year in the Southeast. We got some details to kind of iron out and make sure that we have the right pricing. But hopefully in the next 2 weeks or so, we'll have that locked down and announced. And honestly, we're just waiting to hear back from Skirmish for Desolation 2, which we're hoping to hold the beginning of June. Which will still be nice and cool on the Poconos area that time of year. So that being said, moving forward and kind of going back to the gear aspect of things and talking about a few announcements, again, just be mindful, going into the nicer weather of 2019 and talking about gears and loadouts, make sure that you're protected from the sun, and during regular gameplay, bring some sunscreen. Make sure your clothing and gear, especially camping gear, is protected from the nasties, the insects that are out there, especially ticks. Make sure. If we could figure out, invest in Sawyer stock and or permethrin chemicals. Because you're going to definitely want to pick some of that stuff up and spray all your outdoor gear down, as well as your clothing and whatnot. It's the only thing that's really known to do anything against ticks. But definitely make sure you pick up something for your skin because permethrin spray does not work on your skin. It has to be sprayed on your clothing and allowed to dry. It's a treatment for your clothing. It actually lasts if it's wet. You can wash your clothes several times, and you'd still get a month of its usage out of it. So it's well worth it just for regular play. I don't think anybody outdoors enough can't recommend permethrin enough. But when it comes down to your skin, make sure you're not using, low, quantity DEET, off for kids or something like that. Make sure you got some deep woods off. If you feel really brave, go for some 100% DEET. Or what I've been using a lot is another chemical called picaridin, which is actually recommended by the World Health Organization for against mosquitoes and ticks and whatnot. The cool thing with the picaridin is that, especially in the spray form, DEET has a tendency to melt and mar plastic, especially if you got on your glass lenses or something like that. The picaridin is actually won't affect plastic and gear. And Sawyer makes a lotion, which is it lasts longer than the spray, so it's been a big go-to for me for the 2018 season. Permethrin for my clothes and picaridin lotion for my face and neck and wrists and below the belt areas and whatnot. So that's about it. We'll wind things down real quick. So just to recap, our games are themed. We encourage the people getting involved in the theme. We encourage creativity. Just make sure you have a reason for doing it, and make sure you are still fitting in the storyline and not ruining other people's immersion because you want to do something silly. That also being said, be mindful that there is a true life prepper, bushcrafty survival, skill, aspect of this, and to make sure that your gear and your clothing is appropriate to make sure that you are not suffering, given the time of the year and the weather conditions of the locations that we have our events yet. So just make sure you're literally prepared. I'd rather continue doing what a lot of people have been coming away from our events. It's a continuous learning experience. Just when you think you got something refined, you might want to change something up. And it's a cool aspect of somebody like myself who actually has a degree in education to find that how many people try out an experience that they didn't think they could do and they did it well, from surviving one of our events to just going out and camping for their first time, being that we force that upon our events, and just making sure that you're transitioning to a train of thought that you can do more with less, but you can also do better and more comfortable in your endeavors, by knowing more and thinking about the gear and equipment that you're going to bring. Remember, too much is heavy, and that can be bad, but too little is cold and wet and miserable and hungry, and that's just as bad as well. So a lot of you are my friends. You got questions, issues, concerns about that type of stuff. Feel free to hit me up, dude. I like talking about gear, whether it be airsoft gear, backpacking gear, rock climbing gear, whatever. If it's gear, dude, I like talking about that stuff, as well as many of you do. If you got questions as well or comments, whatever, we have a general interest group. Post them up as well. I don't know if anybody had any specific questions they wanted to ask or have me answer on any of the conversations or topics that we discussed this evening. We got about 10 minutes left in our hour time mark that we're trying to shorten our rants and raves and drunkeny drones down to. But the takeaway of it all is we promised you people out in the Midwest we'd be out to you guys in 2019. We hope that D-Day Action Park is convenient enough for everybody. We have that locked down April 26th, 27th, 28th. For even for the people in the West New York area, I know it's a bit of a drive, but it's a pretty large 750-acre AO with all sorts of old stone structure buildings and whatnot that looks like it was basically an invasion of Normandy, and a lot of other cool aspects that D-Day offers that we're pretty excited about. So tickets will go on sale for Revenant this Friday on our website, or there will be a link for it. We use a ticket app source. Actually, Alex, if you want to drop that name or how people would be able to find that stuff for me because I'm stupid as far as that goes. Alex is the business guy. I'm just the bearded mug who talks and while drinking. So just remember, folks, tickets to the end of the month will be only $80. Tickets to the end of the year will be $100, and the regular event ticket's going to be $120 for this, just so we can pull off the things that we want to pull off this one, because we feel we're going to get a big turnout for this. We got a lot of friends coming, and I've been selling this to my friends for a long time now, and we are not going to cut short. Yeah, you got to go, Max. You got to go, man. You got to go.
Mix like
right,
this,
little
twist.
All right,
Wrist, man, it's hot outside. I know shade. Step up in my house. I know
you like this jam? I hope y'all like this jam. So I'm half embarrassed and half laughing because I kept this on my phone on purpose. Is that my wife put this jam on this phone, and when my phone died, I stole her old phone. So this is my jam. It's my jam now. It's my ringtone. That's my text tone. I got an email tone. Stay off my Kool-Aid, yo. Stay off my Kool-Aid. Unless you got something to trade for it, and that's the case, I might have some Kool-Aid at Revenant. So stay tuned for more updates from us, and as always, which is live now. So all the information for Revenant is on our Facebook page. And it's live now. So get on that. Alex and I are once again we're excited about 2019. We're excited about hitting the Midwest and seeing all our friends out there and getting them to participate in something that we feel is different but worth doing. So on behalf of Alex and I, thank you all again for tuning in. Thank you all again for the support. Thank you all for those who already participated, and thank you all those ahead of time for those who are going to participate. We love you all, and we couldn't do it without you, and we can't wait to see you out there. All right. Peace all. Thank you so much. Have a good night now.